Well, good morning, Love of Christ Church. How are we this morning? Especially after that worship, my goodness. Well, I want to welcome all those who are online. I'm so thankful that you were with us. I am so often reminded that we have people watching from all over the place. People tell us every week, multiple times a week, hey, we're watching. Any given Sunday, 700 people will be watching and with us. So we just want you to know that we see you and we are so thankful for you. Come on. Now, I don't want to take away any more time because my friend Dan Ohlerking is coming to the platform. Dan is the president of Children's Cup. He is, you can give him a big hand clap. And just stand to your feet. Give him a shout out. He's the guy. You've got a bio. But can I just say, man, we had fun running around Africa for 11 days together. That's either going to go really well or not so well. You're here, so I'm guessing it went
really good. I got to turn it on. Man, like I've never done this before.
Well, it is your first time public speaking,
I'm
right?
and flustered being here with you guys. Like, that was good. That was a great trip. We laughed a lot, we cried a lot.
Yeah.
I look at her when I say we cried a lot, like we cried with her. No, it was great. Because you're stepping into something when you say, hey, we're going to be 11 days in Africa. It's not like you just leave in the middle.
That's a commitment.
You're kind of in there.
There's no way out.
And it was a great experience for me. I mean,
Us too. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time, so get after it.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. You guys should know you've got some incredible pastors. I mean, we met, I think we probably met somewhere way back, but about a year ago, had a pastor's event down in Dover, or I don't know, was it Dover? Yeah. And was just like, man, where have you been all my life? You know, because I lived in Birmingham for about 5 years, Alabama, which, just south of where they came here from, right? Yeah. And so, and I, knew their pastor when they were there, and we've got a great pastor friend that we're trying to get to come to Africa with us, Jamie Goldenberg. I've texted him this morning because that Might Get Loud song, first time I heard it was in Jamie's church, and they're good friends and all this. But your worship team, my goodness. I mean, a lot of times you have a band that kind of just they're doing they're playing and everybody else is singing. You lady here on the keys. That Might Get Loud song, she's hollering. Somebody put a mic in her. I don't know, maybe she's way off key, but maybe that's why she's playing keys. But she's in there. Then you got like the singers, they're moving around, they're eking out every note, just milking it, just squeezing it out, just like, and then you got your bass player over here. I mean, he's just standing there. I was like, dude. But then if you listen a little bit, it's not a smoke machine. This is dude's fingers that are flying on the bass. Good bass players don't have to move around a lot. They're getting everything coming out the fingertips. And then, I gotta say it, your guy on the guitar that's like, you don't play that guitar unless you got some appreciation for 80s rock. You know what I'm saying? It's not the little regular shape figure 8 guitar. It's got that, it's not a flying V. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I enjoy that. I think you should enjoy worshiping. And I'm not trying to over-spiritualize it, but I don't think you really can because life is very spiritual. And man, we should enjoy worshiping. I love it when a church doesn't hold back playing that song. Let it loose. It might get loud. You know what? Fine. Heaven's going to be pretty loud. And I'm ready for heaven. I don't have a death wish. I'm going to do what God put me here to do, but I am so ready for heaven. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. I got a few other things I want to share. But one of the things that when we were in Africa, we went to a care point. And I'm sure they came back and talked about it a little bit. But the place is called Balintle. And Eswatini is in southern Africa, way down there. Like when you fly, you're going from Western Hemisphere to Eastern Hemisphere, and then Northern Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere. You're like about as far away as you can get. But man, when you get there, there's a lot of special about Africa. I've lived in other places in the world. My parents are the ones that started Children's Cup, And my dad went to Africa. They lived there for a while. They'd go back and forth 6 months at a time. But he probably went to Africa 100 times. And every time he'd bring somebody with him, he would tell them, once you go to Africa, you'll go back in your mind every day. And I grew up in the Philippines and in Belgium and, traveled around. I've been in a lot of countries, but I don't necessarily think about every one of them. But I think about Africa every day. Even when I wasn't leading Children's Cup, once I went to Africa, I went back in my mind every day. There's something special. So I invite all of you. Let's do one big missions trip. We'll all go. It'll be great. But this place called Belintle, there's a little over 200 kids that come every day. After school, they come and we give them a meal, but we do a lot more than give them a meal. We give them hope. We give them Jesus. And watching their lives be transformed by that has been amazing. But I think it's very appropriate. This is the community you guys jumped in with, because Belintle means beautiful flower. And when I looked at that and I thought, oh, well, of course, that's Cheyenne, beautiful flower. But I'm like, that's true. That's all sweet. But really, like the four of you guys, that's what I think when I think you guys. It's not a fake sweet. You know what I mean? Alabama has some of that. I'll just admit it. And I'm not from Alabama. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Thank you, Jesus. St. George, Louisiana. But there's a lot. Sometimes you get some fake sweet in the South. We know how to do that. But that's not what you guys are. You guys are, as a family, you're a beautiful flower. And I think this church and this community, what you represent, largely because of the pastors before you, I know them too, the great people, and what you guys are doing, the culture of this church brings beauty to this community. And that's a big part of what the church is supposed to do. We aren't just supposed to be out there telling people what they're doing wrong. I grew up in church, and that's what my church was doing. Like we could tell you everything that was going wrong. I think the church we're supposed to bring some hope. Tell them, sometimes you got to say, hey, don't do that. But you got to give people hope and show them what they should be doing. So that's what we do with the kids. So Children's Cup, we're about 30, well, actually next week we'll be 33 years old, which is amazing. When you think about, my parents started it with the dream of feeding 300 or 400 kids and telling them about Jesus. That was and it was a big dream. They put all their credit cards together, went in debt, and made this, the start to this thing. But by the time my dad passed away, it was about 7,000 or 8,000 kids that they were taking care of. God had blown their dream away. And now we're in 7 countries, actually doing our programming with close to 20,000 kids. But there's about 40,000 kids that we're feeding and telling them about Jesus every day in those 7 countries. I just look at them like I get to steward some great dream and great faith. And so what it is basically like an after-school program where kids come after school, most of the times after school, sometimes before, depending on the way school works in those countries. But at Belintle, for example, kids will come after school and they're given a meal, but it's not just a meal. We're giving them, there's discipleship, there's hygiene education, there's sports program, we're working on putting computer labs in every one of the care points so we can help them with their school further. It's what it does. One of the kids, we were actually in a meeting when I heard this kid say it. He's 20-something now, but he said, I couldn't get through elementary school. I had no confidence that I could learn ever. Comes to a care point just to play with other kids. Our team notices him, starts investing in him, starts listening to him, starts helping him with his school, and he said, they gave me confidence. And now that kid is in university, second year of university, I think he was saying he's going into, and studying biotechnology. Not like general ed, like, some of us, that's all all I was ready for. This dude's doing biotechnology. He's like brilliant, but took somebody noticing and listening to us. So that's what we spend a lot of time doing, is noticing these kids, listening to them, getting to know their stories. And some of their stories I'm going to show you a video here in a second, and it's got a lot of the kids' faces in it. I just want you to think, though, when you're watching this, think about, there's some really, really cute kids in this video. I'm just going to tell you. But their stories aren't all that cute. But what the transformation that Jesus is making in their lives is why you see what you see. So let's go ahead and roll that video real quick. The way we say it with Children's Cup is we give hope, inspire dreams, and change worlds. And it's not us changing the worlds, it's kids changing their worlds. And that sometimes it's as simple as like one of those clips shows this little kid kind of looking sad, and this lady runs up to, it's slow motion, but she runs up to him and gives him a hug. It starts with something that simple. You think, well, I don't really have anything I can give. I'm getting ahead of my notes, but I don't really have anything I can give on a mission trip. I don't know what I'd do. Can you hug? Because I'm telling you, that moment in that kid's life was something he does not generally experience. And it brings hope. When somebody notices, do you remember what the video asked the question? What were your dreams when you were a little kid? I wish we had time to just go around and ask some people. But like, what were your dreams when you were a little kid? What are you doing now? Like, what took you from being an 8-year-old to what you are now? Chances are somebody invested something in you, gave you some encouragement, gave you some confidence, listened to you, and said, hey, let me help you out with that. I mean, as simple as that we were talking back before service about helping with homework. Sometimes we can't help our kids with homework because they're like studying stuff that we never even dreamed of. But it's that taking time to notice and listen and to say, hey, let's do this together. And I think that a big part of what we do as Children's Cup, it starts with just that, listening to these kids' stories. And that's what I want to talk about today is when this statement. I don't have a title. Pastor Kirk had like 4 titles last week. I have no title this morning, so I'm just going to go with it's your turn, or it's your move. Which when I saw the chess set out here last week, I watched the video back. I wasn't here last week, but I watched the video. He's got this chess set out here. I thought, oh, this guy, he's way smarter than I remember him being on because he's got a chess set. Like, wow. I thought he was going to pull it out and do some Bobby Fischer on it and all this stuff. Didn't even touch it. But that's all right. That's all right. I don't feel stupid now because I don't have to keep up with that. But in my statement, just really with the whole thing, is this: we're never more like Jesus than when we serve others. And what do you want to do with your life? Is it I want to be richer than Elon Musk, or I want to be the most powerful person in the world, or I want to have all my kids around me and be healthy? Those are not bad dreams. Not bad at all. But I think ultimately what we're created for is not to be the richest, not to be the healthiest, not to be the most powerful, the most famous, whatever. What we're built for is to be like Jesus. He made us in his image, and that's what he wants us to grow in. Be more like him. So our biggest ambition should be to be like Jesus, and we're never more like him than when we serve others. Let me read you Mark 10:42 to 45. Kind of one of those passages, kind of when I think about serving, there's a few passages I go to. I go to when Jesus washed the disciples' feet. Talks about this is God Almighty in human form, puts on a towel and washes the dirt and filth off of the disciples' feet. The Bible describes that scene as it goes into it. It says Jesus showed them the full extent of his love by serving them. This is another passage that for me kind of defines serving. Jesus called them, the disciples, together. He says, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. The disciples have been arguing about who's going to be the biggest in heaven, who's going to be the greatest. And this is how Jesus settled the argument. He said, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. He laid down his own comfort, his own preference, his own whatever he could have had. He laid that down for the sake of many being able to go to heaven. I am blessed with the opportunity to connect with a lot of pastors. I have a lot of pastor friends. Just from my work with ARC, I get to travel and go attend church, go listen, go meet, go have dinner. We had dinner with some pastors last night. Friday night did dinner with pastors in Baltimore. So I'm blessed in that way. I have a wealth of friends. And so I was getting ready for this message. I thought, you know what? I got a lot of people smarter than me that I know that I can ask, what would you say if you were talking about serving and why it's so important? So I texted something, like literally got my phone out and texted about 10 friends and just said, hey, why is serving so important for a Christian? And one of them has been my friend for 40 years. He's the guy that leads ARC. He's on the board for Children's Cup, and he said, it's Dino Rizzo. He said, another Alabama boy now. He's from Louisiana, but he said, it's just the response to the God who first loved us. He fell in love with us first, and we live a life from that. We serve, we reach. Basically, it's that. It's your turn. It's your move. I got to get it right. If I'm going to do a title, do it right. My goodness. I'm going to fix my notes. That will not happen next service. I apologize. Another one in rural Mississippi. I just did a variety of pastors. I didn't think, okay, who's the expert in serving? Dino Rizzo, kind of in my world, he is. I learned more from him about it than anybody. But this next one, he's rural Mississippi, named Wes Garner. He said, there's truly no greater fulfillment than to love and serve with no expectation of anything in return. It's kind of cool. You know, you go to Africa, you go hug that kid, you don't expect anything in return. When you give, you guys are going to India pretty soon. You're not going thinking, I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to see what I can get, When you get to love somebody and serve them with no expectation. Another one, guy in downtown Chicago, Chris Carmona, he said, I love this thought. He said, and it was this profound. He's this kind of guy. He's just very profound with it. This was his answer. One of these I actually edited and took out because he did a voice text to me that was like ums and all that in there. So one of them I edited. But the rest, this is exactly what he sent me back. He said, the Dead Sea is dead because everything flows in but nothing flows out. If all you're doing is coming here and worshiping and having this great time and learning and all this, but you never let anything out, you're missing something. In fact, you're kind of headed towards being dead. That's what that principle would say. Another guy in Buffalo, New York, he was really cold. So we talked about a few things, but then I asked him this question. Mark Rouse, he said, if serving is beneath you, then influence and leadership is beyond you. Boom. If serving's beneath you, then influence and leadership is beyond you. That kind of goes back to what Jesus said, too. I mean, that's pretty strong. Another guy just outside St. Louis, Seth Baltzell, he's in a little town called Centralia, Illinois. He said, meeting the needs of others isn't just part of our God-given design. It is the entire purpose of our God-given design. It is what we're made for. Another guy right here in South Philly, right here, just north of here in South Philly, Brad Leach, he said, serving gets me out of my head, anxiety, worry, fear, and it unleashes my heart, generosity, gratitude, and love. We can get so consumed with our own situation, but you know what? There's somebody out there that's got something that you have, or that needs something you have. You have something somebody else needs. And when you get your life in tune with, let me see what I can do to help somebody else, it's kind of funny how your own problem's going to fade down a little bit. A guy in rural Georgia, Sylvania, Georgia, Clint Williams, he said, no better way to see God work in your life than when you leave your needs at his feet and then find someone else's needs and meet them. Guy in Dallas, Brian Sparks, he said, when you stop focusing on yourself and start focusing on others, it changes everything. And then probably my favorite one. This is Brandon Bilbo in deep South Louisiana. Y'all ever watch Swamp People? Y'all know what I'm talking about? This guy, I mean, literally, he's south of them. It's swamp. Everywhere you go, you got a road and you got water on both sides. Deep South Louisiana. Bilbo, it's a great last name too. Lord of the Rings meets the swamp. It's great. I messed with him about it too. This is what he said. He said, God has something in you to give people, but there's also some seeds and other things that you pick up from that place that you would have never gotten if you hadn't gone. He's talking specifically about going on a mission trip or going out to serve somewhere. If you hadn't gone, you wouldn't have picked them up. There are seeds that when you leave that serving opportunity, those seeds are going to blossom. And not only did you leave a deposit, but a deposit was made in you at the same time. Who's ever gone on a mission trip? Okay, ask them. Without even asking you about it, I promise you, they're going to tell you, I got changed more than I changed the people I went to. It's just what happens. So, one guy actually, I didn't put it in here, he said something about it's one of the most selfish things we can do is to serve others. For me, he said, for me, it's one of the most selfish things I can do because I know God's going to do something in me. It's like, I get it. But so let me give you three things. Why do we serve others? What is the point? Why do we serve others? And it's pretty basic. I'm not a complicated person. I think Kirk and Cheyenne could tell you that. Maybe they say maybe really complicated, but I do try to keep it simple. First one is because people are in need. Why do we serve others? Because people need it. That's pretty easy, right? Got a couple, when I have realized the intensity of that, there was first time maybe not the first time, one of the first times I went to Eswatini, the country in southern Africa where we're partnering together. I went there and the host took us to this little row of houses, basically one building, but it was like a little L shape of rooms, almost like a really, really bad Motel 6. It was just like, a couple here and then a corner one and then a couple, 3 or 4 homes. It was just concrete, dirt floors, open windows. That was in a sheet metal roof. And we're standing in the corner room, which was really tiny. Standing in this room, and on the dirt floor, about 6 of us in there, and the host tells us, the people that live here, there's 2 people live here. They're right now over across the street in the garbage dump working. He said it's a 4-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy. And we were like, do they live alone here? And he said, yes, this is where they live by themselves. Their parents have died of AIDS, and the men in the community allow them to live here in exchange for getting to abuse them. I sat and I thought, there's no words for how that feels to hear. And you're standing there. And I'm like, I can't fix this. But I stinking need to try. I need to do something to help. Because there's a real need out there. There is, those kids, what will they grow up to be? They're going to grow up to be the same as those men that are doing it to them. Except for hope stepping in, that's their destiny. But it's not what they're created for. And so that planted a seed in me. So we've got to do something to help. So people are in need. Another one, when one of the first places we were in Africa as Children's Cup, our workers, they're feeding kids and doing the program and stuff. And they hear to the side, it sounds like somebody crying. They go hunting, trying to find it. And the way in the rural areas in Africa, a lot of times the restrooms are not restrooms. It's just like an outhouse, long drop outhouse. Some of y'all not old enough to even know what I'm talking about, but some of y'all are. But it's just an outdoor hole with a little shack built around it. Sometimes. Well, they go and they find out where this crying's coming from, and it's a 2-year-old baby down inside. The mom has said, I don't want this kid. I can't handle it. And we figure he had been in there probably 2 or 3 days. Our team pulled him out. It's so poetic, the pulling him out. The Psalm 40 pulled me out of the mud and mire. This wasn't just mud and mire. It was bad. Skin disease already settled in. Lung problems from breathing. But he lived. He found hope. He found Jesus. People need, now, maybe that's not going on that much here in the U.S. Maybe here in Delaware, you don't see a lot of babies being thrown into, outhouse holes. But people need hope. People need it. They're in that or worse because they have no hope. Another one, I'll tell you one more story. There's a kid named Kevin. He's in Mexico, and what you're hearing in the news about the cartel, I don't care where you're at politically, but the idea of labeling the cartels as terrorist organizations, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because that's what they are. It is bad beyond bad. And one of the communities we work in, it's like one of the central conflict areas between the cartels. Not even the government fighting them, it's the cartels fighting each other. And in that community, there's this one kid. When I got there, it was about a year ago, or a couple of years ago, I went out there, and our director told us that about every 2 weeks, one of the kids at the care point has a family member that gets executed. Cartel assassination or whatever. It's that prevalent. Well, this kid, Kevin, his uncle lived in the house with them, and he had somehow gotten mixed up in the cartel because it's just it's the way you get involved. If you're a 12, 13-year-old boy in that part of Mexico, that's just what you do. Like it's the family business, but it's like it's just what you do. Because there's no alternative. So they think. But this uncle of his got assassinated in their home, in the entryway to their home. Little tiny, I could barely fit through the door. But you get inside, there's a little entryway, and his uncle had gotten shot, killed. And this 13-year-old boy, he had to help clean it up. This is his life, okay? The cool thing, the beautiful part of this story, which I believe every one of these kids' stories has beauty in it somewhere. It's waiting to happen, waiting to be dug up, waiting to be pulled out and shown them, but it's there. This kid, my wife was there last year. This kid walks into the care point, and he's such a happy kid. He'd learned how to pray at the care point. His mom, we talked to them in the house, and she said, we would never have made it through this if Kevin hadn't taught us to pray. He'd brought it home with him. But he walks into the care point. When my wife was there last year, he walks into the care point. He just kind of busts in the door. He says, I'm the next leader of this care point. My wife's like, all right, let's go, Because what has happened is that didn't rip away all of his hope. It gave him hope. It gave him something to say, I don't have to experience what my uncle experienced, what all the other kids are going to do. I'm going to be in Jesus. I'm going to go after Jesus. That's the difference. And here's the thing. I can go down story after story after story of how bad the situation is for some of these kids. It's bad. Okay, not every one of our kids has that. We've had a couple. We met Lele. She said she came to a care point when she was 4 years old, just looking for friends. Didn't have any friends, just came to play. She wasn't even hungry. Her family had food. She just came looking for kids to hang out with. Now, 20 years later, she's married, got her own kids, and she runs our care point. I mean, that's pretty cool. So that wasn't a devastatingly sad story, but it's salted all throughout. And here's the thing: what I found is it's not the horribleness of your situation. The problem is hopelessness. And that's what the enemy would love to do to every one of you, is rip away your hope. Whether it's, a 2-year-old being thrown away, or 4 and 5-year-old little kids that are just getting abused, or getting your uncle gets killed by the cartel in your home. Those are really bad situations, but the problem with it really comes down to, does it steal your hope? And so the cool thing about hopelessness being the problem, when you identify it that way, it's kind of easy to figure out how to solve it. If it's hopelessness, what do? You bring hope. You give hope. If you give hope where there's hopelessness, you start solving the problem. See, I told you, I love it being simple. And for us as believers, we know that hope's name is Jesus. So bing, I'm just 1, 2, 3, boom, we got it. This is not that complicated. It's hard, but it's not complicated. Okay, so why do we serve? Because people need it. All right, second reason, because I need it. Why do I serve? Because I need it. I need to serve. It's what I was made for. God created me, and he said, now, the way he created me, the purpose and the line of how I serve may be different than yours, but every one of us he created to serve. That's what that one guy said, the quote I was quoting, he said, it's not just the essence of our God-given purpose, it is our God-given purpose. It is what we're made for. I'm not made just to accumulate wealth and power. I was made to serve. And I said this is what I said earlier. Don't think for a second you've got nothing to give. You may be living with 2 cents for your margin every month. So maybe money is not the big thing you've got to give. You've got something to give. You've got your time. You've got your heart. Open your heart up, and it's crazy what will happen with what you see. That, I have this I can give. I can give encouragement. I can give a hug. I've been on so many mission trips where that was the thing people came back feeling like they had actually been able to do to help, was just give a hug. When you talk about thinking you don't have something to give, I learned this when I was in Bible college. I went on a mission trip back to the Philippines where I'd grown up, and I was kind of I got this. I grew up here, I was kind of the insider. Even though if any Filipinos in here, typically not real tall, I'm 6'4", I'm as white as you can be, I was not a Filipino, but I felt like I was. You know, it's like the movie Elf when he just doesn't realize he's not an elf. That's kind of me. But I went back on this trip, and so we're at this church service, and this evangelist is preaching. We're all the Bible college students were lined up on the front row. At the end, he's preaching about healing. And he's like, anybody sick, you want to get prayed for, these Bible college students are going to line up across the front, and you just come up, and they'll pray for you. And we're going to believe God will heal you. I thought, wow, I hadn't done that before. I've never prayed, and I actually had experienced God healing me once, but I've never laid hands on the sick and they recovered. So I'm like, man, kind of pumping myself up, like, let's go, let's do it. I was nervous. Well, this guy comes up and I pray for him. And I asked him, I didn't speak, as much as I'd grown up there, I didn't speak any Tagalog. The Filipino, I didn't speak it. So I'm like, a little bit. I asked him, what does he want prayer for? He's like, he starts pointing to his chest. And I was like, oh, his heart, is your heart? And he just nods, So I start praying. I'm telling God every heart term I've ever heard, aortas and valves. And I'm just telling God, praying for this dude's heart. That guy he was probably 50 then. He's probably still alive now. This is 40 years ago. That heart still bumped. Because I just prayed. Man, when I got done praying, that dude had the biggest smile on his face, took a deep breath, and he's just like, thank you, Jesus. I thought, well, man, yay, Well, at the end, this is one of those services where at the end they have people come up and share what God had done. They said, if you feel like God's healed you, this guy raises his hand. I'm like, yeah, my guy. That's my guy. He comes up, and now they got an interpreter, so I can understand what he's saying now. They asked him, what did God heal you of? He said, emphysema. And he's like, that's why he took a deep breath. He's like, I don't cough anymore. He's just so excited God had healed him of this. And I thought, okay, God, where was I in this? 'Cause I don't know, because I clearly did not know how to pray. You know what it was, though? I was available. I just got there. I went and said, okay, I'm in. I'm not taking credit for it, but what I do see is, hey, you know what? God can do things if you'll just put yourself available to him. That's not minimizing getting good at stuff. It's not minimizing, hey, if you're an eye doctor, this kid needs glasses. So we're going to take your talent and we're going to put it to use. That's great. But if you feel like, man, I don't have anything to get, yes, you do. You do. Just make yourself available. If God can work through a donkey, I think I'm all right. I think God's got something he can do with me. So maybe you don't have, like this care point we're working on building in Belindley. Maybe you don't have all the money to write the check and, oh yeah, God used me. Maybe you do. Great. We got plenty more to do, so let's go ahead and do that. But maybe you feel like, man, I don't have the money to do the whole thing. You know what? As a church, as a body of believers together, when we say, God, I'm going to do my part, you watch what happens. God does things that we just cannot even imagine. And maybe you don't think you're everything, but you're something. Okay, none of us are. Very, very few times do we have somebody just, in the financial side, just say, here's a check for the whole thing. Most of the time it's, hey, we work together and we see God do something. We believe and we pray, and over time it gets done in God's timing. It is the most, so give God a chance to show you what he made you for. Just give him a chance. If you let him do it, he will. It's the most fulfilling life anyone can live. And when I serve, my perspective from my own world changes for the better. It puts it all in perspective. It brings health to my soul. It's impossible to live in a place where you see God changing lives over and over and not begin to walk in a fresher, healthier, brighter, more hopeful way. Now, I got one more point and I'll hurry. We all crave the experience of God working in us, working through us. We all crave that. Even if you don't know it, that's an itch you need to scratch, is to see if God can work through you. He can, I promise you, he can. The question is, will we experience it? And the culmination of all this serving others is not just to get you to sign up or to go on a missions trip or be a part of the team here at church. You should do both. That's not the whole point of this. The whole point of this is that we create space for others to experience God. And for others to experience God working through them. It's not just those little faces that you see in the video. That's a big face. I'm talking about the little faces you saw in the video. It's not just giving them food. It's not just giving them hope and realizing that God can do. God can do something through them. When they get the chance to experience God did something through me, that's when hope really takes root. And then their dreams start to take root, and then they go change their world. I had the opportunity to have a kid pray over one of our teams before we were leaving. I said, hey, can you ask the leader, I said, hey, can you get one of the kids to come pray for us? He'd asked me to pray for them, so I was like, yeah, we'll do that. But so he pulls up this 11-year-old girl. She's dressed in just a rag of a dress. Used to be a white dress, now it's just in dirt. And she starts praying. And they spoke English there. She said, she starts praying over us, me and the pastor and about 10 or 12 other people. And she said, God, would you just meet every need they have? Me and the pastor kind of cheated a look. You know, you're supposed to close your eyes when you pray because for whatever reason. We cheated, we looked. And our eyes met, and we looked at her when she's praying this, God, meet every need they have. Don't let them go without. We look, she's got one flip-flop on. She's filthy. She's got nothing. And me and the pastor, we looked back at each other and just instantly started crying. By the time that little girl got done praying, all 13 of us were just sobbing, you know, because we just realized, man, God, you're in this. She gets done praying. She's like, okay, you know, starts to walk off. She notices all of us crying. Wanted to know what's going on. So we tell her. She knew in that moment God had used her. God had worked through her to do something to bless us. I thought that's the best thing we did on this whole trip, is that little girl experienced God use her. Why did Jesus use a little boy, a little fat boy, I'll tell you why, to feed 5,000 people? He could have said, Domino's, here you go. He could have brought back the manna and the pheasants, anything. No, he used a little boy, used his lunch. I say fat little boy because that was me. I like to relate with him. But his mom sent him 5 loaves and 2 fish for lunch. Like, really? There's a lunch for you. I love bread. But my mom never sent me 5 loaves. This kid gives his lunch, but you know what? The rest of that kid's life, anybody tell that story? He's like, that was my lunch. Jesus used me. That's what we want to give these kids. It's what I want you to experience. The best gift you can give someone is the chance to experience God working through them. The other reason we serve is because of eternity. All of us will spend eternity in one place or another. And there's only 2. It's heaven or hell. We serve because people need to know there is an eternity out there. And Jesus has made the way for them to end up in heaven for eternity. That's why we serve. Now, I'm not saying you got to confront people with eternity every time you go out and welcome them at the door. But the reason we serve ultimately is to say, Jesus made a way for you to not have to go to hell. You can go to heaven. That's why we serve. Ultimately, it's because eternity. That makes me so much more balanced in my life when I realize that person at Popeyes that just put pickles on my sandwich because pickles are from hell, I don't have to be mad at them. In fact, I need to not be mad at them. I can take the pickles off. I can even return the sandwiches, just kindly say, hey, can I get one with no pickles, please? And not say, like I asked. You know what I mean? Just being nice. Being nice. Christians, we should be nice. And I struggle with that sometimes because I'm the best driver on the road. I'm just going to tell you right. Any great drivers out there? Okay, the rest of y'all, get out the way. But you know what? It's not worth it to impose my driving skill prowess or my I didn't want pickles. I don't need to impose it on people because eternity. Sometimes serving somebody is just being nice when they really kind of maybe don't deserve it. Serve people. They need it, I need it, and there's an eternity out there hanging in the balance. And before I'm done, but I want to ask you one question. You need to know there's an eternity out there. And some of you in here, maybe you don't know where you're going. So I just want to ask you, bow your heads. And I know I've talked a lot about serving, and I hope that you've been drawn to giving your life to allowing God to work through you. But if there's anybody in here, you say, I don't know for sure that I'm going to heaven. I don't know for sure that I settled the eternity question. And I just want to give you an opportunity to say yes to Jesus. I'm going to pray and ask you if you pray this prayer with me, make it your own. It's not the words that I'm saying, it's the heart behind it. Make it your prayer to Jesus. God, I give you my life. I don't want to spend eternity in hell, but there's so much more I want. I want to serve you. I want the joy of knowing that you are running my life. So I submit to you. I'm going to let you call the shots. I'm going to live the way you instruct. I believe that you died for my sin. I ask you to forgive me, wash me, make me clean, and set my feet on a path of serving the purpose you created me for. I believe that you died and rose again for me. In Jesus' name. Now, if you prayed that prayer with me, that was you, I just want to ask you to raise your hand so we can just continue to pray with you. And then Pastor Hillary's got some instructions for you too to help. Thank you, guys.